This is the video for the Algebra Regents exam, August 2014, short response questions. When you take a look at question number 25, in the equation, blah, 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 B is an integer. You have x plus a times x plus b, and it gives you this trinomial in the end. Find algebraically all the possible values of b. It's sort of a trick question here. All that you have to do is reverse FOIL. What times what is 24? That adds up to 10. Now, here's the tricky part. Most people would probably just do x plus 6 times x plus 4, or x plus 4 times x plus 6. However, there's really two possible answers here. That's where it's being tricky. Most people would probably get 1 out of 2 points just for putting one of the possible answers. But you can put either one of these. You could do x plus 6 times x plus 4, or you could do x plus 4 times x plus 6. The way that they do this question, they want to know what b could be. So b could be both of these. So b could be 4 or b could be 6. You have to specifically say in your answer for this question, 4 and 6. If you just left it as just doing reverse FOIL, you would only get 1 out of 2 points. In question number 26, Rhonda deposited $3,000 in the account, earning 4.2% interest. Write an equation that could be used to find her balance B. Now notice that it does say B right here, so you have to have B equals. If you did not have B equals, because it says to write an equation, you do not get full credit. Remember that this is your initial amount, the $3,000. And then in parentheses, since it's putting into a savings account and your savings account is growing, it's going to be 1 plus whatever the percent is. Remember that we have to move the decimal point over 2 places so that it becomes 0.042. And we have to add that to the 1, and then it's to the t power. Either one of these two answers is fine. If you added the thing in parentheses or not, either one is fine, but you have to have the b equals. If you're just missing one thing or made one mistake, you get 1 out of 2 points. If you have 2 mistakes, you wouldn't get anything. In question number 27, Guy and Jim work at a furniture store. Guy is paid $185 per week plus 3% of his sales. So 185 plus 0.03x. Jim is paid $275 a week plus 2.5% of your sales. 275 plus 0.025x. Determine the value in dollars that will make their weekly pay the same. The same means equal. So all that you want to do is set these two things equal to each other. You want to get all of your x's onto one side, all of your plain numbers onto the other. There are a variety of first steps that you could take, all of which are being correct. You'll get the same answer in the end. What I did is I got all my x's to the left-hand side by subtracting 0.025x and got all my plain numbers onto the right-hand side of the equal sign by subtracting 185. And then divide by 0.05, you get 18,000. Again, if you had just one mistake, you get 1 point. If you had more than one mistake, you don't get any points. In question number 28, express the product of this trinomial and this binomial in standard form. Remember, in standard form means that the exponents have to go in order from the biggest exponent to your littlest exponent. So you're doing the product. So you're doing this times this. Now, normally we have a binomial times a binomial. This time we have a trinomial times a binomial. What you have to do is you could still just distribute. So we're going to take this 2x squared, multiply it by x, and multiply it by 5. Then we're going to take our middle term of 7x, multiply it by the x, multiply it by the 5. Then we're going to take our third term of the negative 10, multiply it by the x, multiply it by the 5. You end up with these 6 terms. You can add together your like terms here of the x squared and the x squared to be a plus 17x squared. We can add together our like terms of an x and an x right here to be a plus 25x. So this is our final answer. Again, if you only had one mistake, you get 1 out of 2 points. If you had more than one mistake, you don't get any points. And you had to have your final answer in this order because standard form has your biggest exponent first. In question number 29, let f be the function that is represented by the graph below. So this is f. Let g be a function so that blah, 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 the equation. What I did is that I graphed this one. You can see my picture of the g of x. It asks you, determine which function has the larger maximum value and justify your answer. Well, so for justifying my answer, I showed my work of this graph, right? Justifying your answer means you have to show some sort of proof or some sort of work. So I did my picture of my graph right here. I got a max of 11. Here I have a max of 6. So G has a larger maximum value because 11 is bigger than 6. 1 point for saying that G has a larger value, 1 point for justifying your answer, showing your work. In question number 30, solve the inequality. So I want to distribute. So I have 3x plus 9. I want to get all of my letters onto one side, all of my plain numbers onto the other. So I did minus 3x and minus 3x, and then plus 3 and plus 3. So I have 12 is less than or equal to 2x. Divide by 2. So I get 6 is less than or equal to x. When we write an inequality, we really want the letter to come first. So I'm going to switch it around. You didn't have to switch it around, but I'm going to switch it around so that it makes more sense. So when you switch it around, you have to switch everything around, including the inequality sign. That's why I switched my less than or equal to become greater than or equal to. And now it says, and state the smallest possible value for x in the solution set. So it says x is greater than or equal to 6. Therefore, my smallest number would be 6, because that's the or equal to. So 1 point for either one of these inequalities, 1 point for saying that 6 is the smallest possible value for x. In question number 31, they want you to, it says the table below represents the residuals for a line of best fit. Plot these residuals on the axis below. So I just made each block count for 1. That just makes life easy. So plotting the points, you get this U-shaped type graph. You do not connect the dots on a residual plot. If you connect the dots, you're technically going to lose a point. All right. You can't get the 2 out of 2. Using the plot, so graphing the points is worth 1 point. Using the plot, assess the fit of the line for these residuals and justify your answer. They want to know, will it form a straight line? Yes or no. It's a bad fit because there is a U-shaped pattern in the residuals. A line in a residual plot is going to look like this. All right. When we have our graph, a line is going to be a random pattern above and below, because you want about the same number of dots above as you do below, just in a random pattern. That will form a straight line. This is going to form a U-shaped graph, all right? And we don't want that U-shaped graph. So you need something to that effect in your explanation. In question number 32, a student was given this equation to solve by completing the square. Remember, completing the square means take half of your b value and square it. So you can see that they added 13 to both sides. And now we get to this step in the process. State the c value of c that creates a perfect square trinomial. Well, what they want you to do is take half of your b value and square it. So half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9. 9 is the value that we're going to add to both sides. So 9 is going to be your c value. Explain how the c value is determined. Well, you took half of the b value and then squared it. So 1 point for saying that c equals 9, 1 point for saying that you took half of the b value and squared it. In question number 33, this is a very tricky question. On the axis below, graph this. So just type it into your y equals, second table to find your points. Make sure that you have arrows on the ends. Now you get 1 point for that, all right? The second point, it says if the g of x equals the f of x minus 2, how is the graph of the f of x translated to form this? Well, you're subtracting 2 from the whole entire thing. Anytime that you subtract 2 from the whole entire thing, you are doing a translation of down 2. So that is worth 1 point. Now there's a third part of the question. If the h of x equals the f of x minus 4, how is the graph of f of x translated to form the graph of h of x? So you have your original equation here. We need to sub in x minus 4 in for the x. Well, when we sub it in for the x, we have 3 times the x of 4. All right. Be careful that it's not 3x minus 4. It's 3 times x minus 4. That's the tricky part of this question. So what you're doing is you're subtracting 4 from just the x value. All right. Notice how the minus 4 was inside the parentheses here. So it's not going down. It's just being subtracted from the x. Since the 4 is just being subtracted from the x, it's really a translation of right 4. So again, I would say that there are 4 points here. There's a 4-point question, 1 point for the graph, 1 point for the translation down 2. And I'd say this bottom part is probably worth 2 points, a translation of right 4, because you're subtracting 4 from just the x. In question number 34, you are taking this area of a trapezoid formula and you are expressing B1 in terms of those. Since it says express B1 in terms of, we want a final answer of B sub 1 equals. So we want to try and get that B sub 1 all by itself. Well, I showed 2 completely different ways to do this problem. One way that you could do it, and I'm going to do this one first, to get rid of the fraction, you would have to multiply by 2 and multiply by 2. That would cause these 2's to cancel out. So on the left-hand side, we have 2 times a. On the right-hand side, we have all that's left in the formula, h times b1 plus b2. We want to try and get this b1 times b plus b2 all by itself. So we want to divide by h and divide by h. That makes the parentheses disappear. 2a divided by h is just 2a divided by h. Now we have b1 plus b2. To get the b1 all by itself, I need to do minus b2 and minus b2. So you can't do this minus this, so it just stays that minus that. So this is a fine answer. Totally different way that you could do it, it's really 1/2 times h times this inside parentheses. When you're multiplying things together, the way to get rid of them is to divide. So I could divide by 1/2 h and divide by 1/2 h. Those cancel out, those cancel out. I have a divided by 1/2 h. If you chose to change the 1/2 into a 0.5, that you're more than welcome to do that. So now on the right-hand side, we're left with b1 plus b2. Subtract b2 from both sides and you get this answer. There are other versions of answers, but those are probably the most 2 common answers. Doing that is worth 2 points. As long as you did like the first couple steps in it correct, you would at least get 1 out of 2. In the second part, they tell you what the area of the trapezoid actually is. It's 60. Its height is 6 and 1 base, so B1 or B2, it doesn't matter, is 12 feet. Find the number of feet in the other base. So you have to be careful here. You're going to sub in a 60 in for the A into the formula. They gave you that formula at the very beginning. 1/2 stays 1/2. 6 is our height. I left B1 as B1. I subbed in the other base as 12. If you had 12 here and plus B2, perfectly fine way to do it. And now go through and solve it. When you go to solve it, so you have to be very careful here because 1/2 times 6. In order of operations, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, PEMDAS. Normally we do the parentheses first. However, in this problem, it really says 1/2 times 6 times this whole thing. We actually have to do multiplication in order from left to right. So we actually have to do this 1/2 times 6 first. So 1/2 times 6 is 3. Now distribute and distribute. Solve for B1, you get B1 equals 8. Or we could take this formula that we used above and sub the numbers into that formula and solve. Either way, you get an answer of 8. 2 points for the top, 2 points for the bottom. In question number 35, let the f of x equal that, let the g of x equal that. On the same set of axes below, draw each of them. So type each of them into your y equals, hit second and table, and graph it. So each graph is worth 1 point. Make sure that you have arrows on the ends of each of them. So 1 point for each of those. Using this graph, determine and state all the values of x for which they are equal. They cross at these two purple points. This purple point is over to -2 and down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. -2, 8. However, notice if you put -2, 8, that would not be a correct answer. If you put 1, -2, one common -2 inside parentheses, that would not be a correct answer. The coordinates are not correct answers. It's only asking you for all the values of x for which they're equal. So they're equal at -2 for x and at 1 for x. 1 point for -2, 1 point for 1. I would say if you wrote the two coordinates correctly, you get 1 out of 2 points for there. But you do get 1 point for each of the graphs as well, because it's a 4-point question. In question number 36, the school building is rectangular, or sorry, the school has a rectangular soccer field. It has an area of 6,000. The field must be 40 yards longer than its width. So this is one of those questions, just like we did in class, that it doesn't say anything about the width. So you could just assume that the width is x. Well, if the width is x, the length has to be 40 longer than the width. So x plus 40. They expect you to know that the area of a rectangle is length times width, or you could say base times height. So they want you to multiply the two things together. X times x plus 40 equals the area of 6,000. Now, in order to do reverse FOIL, or in order to use the quadratic formula, we have to have it set equal to 0. So that's why I want to subtract 6,000 from both sides. Now I have this trinomial. I could either do reverse FOIL factoring the trinomial, or I could use the quadratic formula. Either way, you'll get the same answer. And again, notice that it does say determine algebraically. So you have to do it either of these two ways, or you could do completing the square, but I doubt anybody would do it that way. So if you do reverse FOIL, what times what is -6,000? That adds up to 40. It's 100 times -60. Draw your line down the middle, set both sides equal to 0, and solve. You get -160. You're going to have to reject the negative in this question because you can't have a negative length of a side. So 60 is our answer. Then you have to take that 60 and sub it in. So 60 is the width, 60 plus 40 is 100, which is the length. Same thing if you did the quadratic formula, you get 60 and -100, you'd have to reject the negative answer. So how would this one be scored? I would say that setting up this equation initially is worth 1 point. Getting down to here is worth 1 point. Getting our answers are 1 point each as well. And then in the last question, Edith babysits for X hours a week. That means our X values down here are going to be the babysitting hours. At a job that pays $4 an hour. She accepted a job that pays $8 an hour as a library assistant working Y hours. So that means our Y value is going to be along the side. That's going to be the library hours. She will work both jobs. She is able to work no more than 15 hours a week. No more than is going to be less than or equal to 15 due to commitments. She wants to earn at least $80 a week. At least. You have to be at least 16 years old to drive a car. So you could be equal to it or more than it. So at least is greater than or equal to 80. Write a system of inequalities that can be used to represent the situation. So you have your babysitting hours plus your library hours. She can't work more than 15, so less than or equal to 15. That's one equation that's worth 1 point. For the other one, now we're talking about the money. $4 an hour for the babysitting, $8 an hour for the library. So 4x plus 8y. She wants to earn at least $80 a week, so greater than or equal to 80. 1 point for setting up this equation. In order to graph these two equations, we need to rearrange them to be y equals. So in this first one, we want to do minus x and minus x. We get this. Hit second and table, graph your points. Now we have less than or equal to, so that's going to be a solid line, and we're shading below. For the second one, we want to subtract 4x and subtract 4x, divide by 8s. We get y is greater than or equal to -1/2 x plus 10. That's going to be a solid line. We're shading above. We're shading above the line. So this equation 1 point, this equation 1 point, the graph worth 1 point, the graph worth 1 point. That creates a double shaded area here in the green. That's where our solution set is. Remember, sometimes they make you put in a letter S in the solution set. Determine and state one combination of hours that will allow Edith to earn at least $80 per week while working no more than 15. So you want a point in the double shaded area. However, 111 over to 1 up 11, this purple dot right here, that's in the double shaded area, but you can't, they're very picky on this particular year, you can't write 1 comma 11. They wanted to know how many hours of each. 1 comma 11 doesn't tell me which one is which. You had to specifically say 1 hour babysitting, 11 hours for the library. So 1 point for each of these. If you wrote 1 comma 11 or another point in the double shaded area, you'd only get 1 out of 2. So 1 point, 1 point, 1 point for each of the graphs, 1 point for 1 hour babysitting, 1 point for 11 hours of the library. Remember, you could have had any point in that double shaded area. Here is the score conversion chart. Hopefully you did well.